Good morning, everyone, ladies and gentlemen. Things are getting worse in the United Kingdom, and I've been saying that this is going to happen exponentially leading towards this summer. Now, I've been talking about the summer of carnage coming 2025. I don't think anybody else has been talking about this for as long as me. But what you're seeing now is you're seeing other people start to see these, see these things sprouting out of the weeds and say, whoa, hang on a minute. This is going to kick off this summer in the United Kingdom. But before we get into that, ladies and gentlemen, can you do me a real big favor and hit those buttons down below, the like, the comment. In fact, you don't hit a comment button, you do a comment, the like, the subscribe button, the bell notification, all those buttons down below that help my channel grow, because ultimately, ladies and gentlemen, the only way we grow this channel together is by you guys clicking that button, sharing my stuff and commenting. So thank you very much for those guys who have done that already. Listen, when I was talking about the when I started talking about the summer of carnage last year, when I was at the when I witnessed what I did, the riots, the protests, the mass divisions in our society, I did a video. You guys can go back and check it. And I had an orange checkered shirt on. I was saying, look, what I'm seeing now, next year, this is going to be worse. And what people need to understand is countries go through protesting season. Now, this is usually in the 6 weeks holidays. Kids are off school. People have got nothing to do. People are bored. You can reach a critical mass of people to go somewhere. And for every 100 people, a minority will take things to the violent extremes, whether you certainly don't agree with it, but that is the reality of the situation. So the more people that go to these protests, the more people who feel disgruntled with the government or with whatever social situation they're in, the more likelihood of those things turning south. Now, I've done many videos on, the temporal events that I feel need to happen before this. But just before we get into that, guys, and just before I talk about the summer of carnage, I want to talk about the what's going to be coming next. So first of all, I've done so many videos on sabotage. I've been talking about sabotage coming to the United Kingdom for well over a year now. I'll try and link the video to the end of this. I did a top 10 video, and the top 3 were basically cyber attack, water, and electricity. Not in that order, but and it's going to depend where you are in the United Kingdom, which one's more relevant to you. But you are seeing now an increase in cyber attacks. Now, it doesn't even make the news anymore. It doesn't even make headlines anymore. I think it was this weekend, just gone, maybe Friday, Halifax banking system went down again. Didn't even make the news. Why? Because people don't care about it anymore. I mean, is it a cyber attack? Is it not a cyber attack? It's never happened before. They always blame this on a third party. But those cyber attacks are going to get more sophisticated. They're going to start to become coordinated. They're going to coordinate those with acts of actual sabotage where you hit the ground. Substations, electricity. Guys, listen, if anybody thinks this is just coincidence that all these substations are going up in flames, I'm going to share an article with you in a minute that will kind of push you the opposite way. And then water. We haven't had a big water incident in the United Kingdom yet, but I do think it's coming, guys. I keep warning about it. And when I warn about the water in the United Kingdom, it's because it's a low risk target. What do I mean by that? Well, when you're climbing over these fences to go and set fire to whatever you're going to set fire to, substations, it's a risk. You could get electrocuted, you could fall on the fence. There are so many different things that could go wrong with that operation. Now, with your water system, like, everybody knows where there's a water pipe. Everybody knows where there's a pumping station. The worst that's going to happen if you attack one of these water pipes is you get wet. So when you're looking at this as a bad guy and you're thinking, right, okay, I'm gonna make an attack on this country. Yes, you can take out their electricity. There's an order of magnitude with the with the risk there. Yes, I can take out like other utilities like gas, but you kind of don't want to be setting fire to gas plants, because that's not going to end well. And water, guys. Okay, we all need water. We know that the water companies are legally bound to provide everybody. So if your water goes off, Within 24 hours, that water company is legally bound to provide you with 10 litres of water per person per day. Now, you can imagine like a city the size of what did we? I think we did the maths for Doncaster. So Doncaster almost has 1 million people. It's like 800 and something thousand. But like, you know, London, for example, a big city, you can imagine the millions of litres per day that city would need to provide. It's just not feasible, guys. It is not feasible to be able to provide all that water. You know, so the government would have to be called in, water rationing, there'd be all sorts of crazy stuff happening. And again, when we look at the situation in the United Kingdom now, we are at a critical mass. So what I'm going to do is real quick, I'm just going to share this article with you guys. Where is it? Oh, I've lost it. Is it this one? Yes, this one, I think. Yes. So this article here, guys, you know, from the Standard, I'll put the link in this description. There's other people talking about this. UK to launch new home guard to protect power plants and airports amid rising global threats. Now, nowhere, anywhere in any media outlet has anyone said that these acts are sabotage yet. But like I always say, guys, you know, it's the information around the information that tells you what's really happening. So if these things that were being set on fire, these substations, if they were just going up accidentally, if it was just extra load from, I don't know, extra load from charging electric vehicles, extra load from toasters or whatever, you know, I don't think this would even be being considered. A home guard defence force could be established to protect key British infrastructure. Now, I'm not going to read the article, guys. I will put this in, I will put this in the description. But what this highlights here is the government understanding now that we are under massive threat from these acts of sabotage. And I'm going to call it now. It's going to be absolutely pointless. Pointless. It's not going to, we don't have the manpower to protect all of these substations. And when you're doing a security analysis, just let me caveat this. I've been a security manager for many, many years. You know, one thing that's very clear, you either do it properly or you don't do it at all. There's no point in doing a half a job. You know, like, for example, if you've got CCTV around your house and you've got a risk to your house or whatever, there's no point in just having like one camera in one place covering your door, because the bad guys are going to see that and they're going to think, right, okay, I'm going to go in the back door. I'm going to go through a window. What you need to do is you need to have interlocking arcs, and then you need to have cameras looking on those cameras, and you have to have a network. So where the government are trying to protect key installations, what about the installations that are not key? Are those not going to get protected? So what's the point in protecting any if you can't protect all? And this is where I'm going, guys, okay? I don't think people understand the manpower that would be needed to protect all these, all this infrastructure. Yes, of course, some of it's going to be a deterrent and some of it's going to be smoke and mirrors, but I do think, and what we're seeing is a concerted effort now to target the British infrastructure. I don't know if I mentioned, I will try and put the link to the description. Sorry, the link in the description to the video that I did on my top 10 sabotage targets. And when we're talking about this sabotage, guys, okay, this is already happening in Ukraine. The Russians or whoever, sorry, I don't want to blame anyone. Whoever those adversaries are, whoever those near-peer adversaries are, they don't need to send their best, James Bond character with his exploding Rolex watch anymore. No, they just meet people online, use encrypted whatever messaging services, send them a couple of £100 and say, right, go and do that, off you go. And that is pretty much it, ladies and gentlemen. That is how it's done now. And the next question is, do we have masses and masses of people in this country who could be susceptible to criminal work? Well, I would speculate the answer is yes. I would speculate the answer is yes, and more come every day on boats. And, that is where we are. We've already reached a critical mass in the United Kingdom. So what are we going to see moving forwards then in the next, from when I'm doing this video to, I think from when I'm doing this video to the beginning of the 6-week summer holiday. So let's just say to the beginning of August, just for argument's sake. So from now until the beginning of August. And we're already beginning to see this, guys. I'm getting messages through of people already telling me that this is happening. I've said this is happening already. I've done videos on this, but I just wanted to reiterate these things now. So what we're going to get is we're going to get bigger divisional lines now, and communities, or whatever community that is. It's going to be like, you're going to have a white community, you're going to have black community, you're going to have Asian communities, you're going to have communities divided on religious, ethnic, geographical, religious, financial lines. All these lines are going to grow. But as we move forward, I think the main thing that people are going to start to notice is people will stop caring. People will stop caring. And those social norms where, if you're a white person, you do feel some sort of, how do I put this? How do I put this in words without getting the video flagged? What you're going to see is, and whether you agree with this or not, this is what you're going to see. You're going to start to see white people lose their white guilt and just not care anymore. White people calling out and saying, do you know what? I want my culture above your culture. I want my kids. I want my family. I want my future. And I want to put that in front of what you perceive your future to be. And you're going to get this, and you're going to get this bonding. And I think we're already seeing this with the resurgence of Christianity, the resurgence of people block voting, the resurgence of these, with Nigel Farage's reform. And again, I don't think by any stretch of the imagination they're going to be in power at the next election. I'll probably do a standalone video on that. But what I think will happen is, closer to the election, Keir Starmer will stop the smuggling gangs, and then that will be it. It will be reform over. But that's where I think the country's going, guys. People will just stop caring. They will be openly saying things. And again, I don't know if I did it on this platform or the other one. I was walking through Sheffield City Centre couple of weeks ago, and there was a couple of lads outside outside a pub. I can't remember what the pub was called, but I was walking through, and there's a couple. It wasn't late in mid-afternoon, and they were openly talking about things that this time last year nobody would have dared talk about those things and mention the things so brazenly, so loud, so openly, so not caring, because people are starting to lose. People just don't care anymore. And when that happens, when you take away everything, I think it's is it in Marx and Engels' Communist Manifesto, some of the guidelines, and again, you can argue that whether the credibility of that or not. But, in the Communist Manifesto, one of the things that Marx sets out is the markers for a revolution. First of all, it's when people have got no jobs. When there's no jobs, that's one of the markers. When there's no jobs and there's no prospect of jobs, it's when things look homeless. When things look hopeless, and when the price of when homes becomes a scarcity, and that is what we're seeing at the moment, guys. And I just keep remembering the saying that JFK said when he said, if you make peaceful revolution impossible, you make violent revolution inevitable. Now, these are all things that are happening in the United Kingdom. We've got cost of living, we've got the government handling things, it's just like, when you look at these things, it's just absolutely insane. I mean, just the last couple of weeks, we had Keir Starmer, last week actually, last week we had Keir Starmer go over to Albania. In fact, let's give context. Before this government got in, the previous government under the Conservatives, they said, right, we've spent £1 billion. I think it was £1 billion or €1 billion. £1 billion. That's a lot of money, guys. If I had £1 billion, I would be able to spend this a lot better. I would have a moated castle with crocodiles, but that's a different story. Now, if we look at this thing, guys, all right, so the last government spent £1 billion of taxpayers' money on facilities in Rwanda to send failed asylum seekers. That was there. It was done, as I understand it. It was ready to go. This government got in and they said, no, we're going to scrap that. We're going to smash the gangs. Things are worse than ever now in the United Kingdom. They really are. And they're just, we've reached a critical mass now. So whether 1,000 people come every day or whether it's 10,000, to me, we just need to hurry up and get it over with. But that's what happened. There was £1 billion or €1 billion spent on a Rwanda plan to send people to Rwanda. Now, this government came in, they said, yep, scrap that. Fast forward, they must have been in a room and said, right, has anyone got any ideas? And somebody must have said, why don't we send everyone who's failed to a third country? I'm listening. Yeah, well, didn't we have something with Rwanda? Albania. So Keir Starmer went over there to announce his big plan, and the Albanian Prime Minister, standing at the side of him, said, actually, Prime Minister, no, that's not going to happen. That's fake news. Now, how does this happen, ladies and gentlemen? Like, if you want to dissect that, first of all, it's ridiculously, and how tall is that guy? He's a giant. So let's dissect that a little bit, shall we? Let's just dissect what we're talking about there. The British Prime Minister had been told, so somewhere in a briefing, somebody's given him a briefing and said, Keir, listen, mate, this is your briefing, this is what you've got to do. Because, those two people, remember what I always say, guys, all this work gets done behind the scenes. All this work gets done behind closed doors before these two leaders even, before these two leaders even meet. So this should have been a done deal. So at some point in that chain, somebody has told Keir Starmer that it's a done deal. Now, look, guys, I'd be very critical of Keir Starmer, but this is under no way is that Keir Starmer's fault. Comes down to the Foreign Office, David Lammy's department, because somewhere in that negotiating team, somebody has wrote, yes, Keir, it's a done deal. Announce it today, because obviously Keir Starmer hasn't got time to go through all these things. He just literally turns up, reads off a script, shakes an hand, and he's gone. So somebody there, the left hand doesn't know what the right hand's doing, and that and it just shows you, if you want to dissect that at government level, at that top tier. Guys, look, that should not be happening. There should be checks and balances on the way to make sure that doesn't happen. Even before that speech is written, even before that speech is read, that speech should be given to one of the aides on the other side and say, right, make sure everything in that speech is okay. Likewise, the Albanian Prime Minister should be giving their speech or whatever they're going to say to the British aide, and they should be saying, yep, everything's fine on there. There's going to be no embarrassments. Why hasn't that happened? How hasn't that happened? And if that's not happening there and we're seeing these things, you can only imagine what's underneath the surface. You can only imagine what's going on behind the scenes, in the Labour Party. It's absolutely insane. So that is kind of it, guys. As a direction in the country, we're going to see these divisional lines grow. We're going to see a resurgence of... I want to say British culture. I'm going to say British culture. Yeah, we're going to see a resurgence of British culture and people openly not caring now whether they offend people when they talk to them. People openly saying, do you know what? I'm not bothered, and saying things in public that social norms 1, 2, 5, certainly 10 years ago would have just been absolutely unthinkable. That's what we're going to see moving forward. And then this is the summer of carnage, guys. It's going to start when the 6 weeks holidays start. Yes, of course, you're going to see things build up to that. We're going to have the, we're going to have the trial of the two. The two guys who had fisticuffs with the armed police in Manchester. Yes, of course, that trial is going to be a big one. We're going to have the trial of Ricky Jones, the Labour MP, who's saying we're gonna how is that even a thing? And then all the time as the backdrop of this, you've got Lucy Conley, who is serving 2 years. I don't even know if as I understand it, she's still in prison. Lucy Conley, who's serving 2 years, 7 months for, was it a Facebook post? So if you put all this into some sort of Overton cauldron, you've got to expect that those two gentlemen who attacked the police officers, they need to get more than 2 years, 7 months each, without a shadow of a doubt. Because if they don't get more than 2 years, 7 months, then what we're saying is writing things on Facebook is worse than punching police officers. And we're going to see all these things come out. And be under no illusion, guys, the British public are not stupid. More people are waking up now and noticing these things. They're noticing these discrepancies. They're more noticing these, discrepancies? Discrepancies, sorry. They're noting these discrepancies. And they're looking at it thinking, hang on a minute. That woman there got 2 years, 7 months for doing that. but that guy over there got a suspended sentence, and he did what? How is that even a thing? And then the government are coming out and saying we've got no two-tier policing system. Guys, look, you know, it's absolutely insane. I talk like on Friday I was on a group chat with friends. I've got friends in Ukraine, friends in America, friends in Canada. We all get on a group chat, and sometimes we have a carb. I can say it on here. Sometimes we have a beer online, and we're all like just abusing each other. And people always ask me, they say, Sean, what's going on with the United Kingdom? It's painful to watch, and it is painful to watch. But I think this painfulness in the United Kingdom, I think it's part of a growing process, because I am seeing this resurgence of British culture. And this is, I think, most notably quantifiable in the resurgence of Christianity, and the churches are starting to get packed. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, I've waffled on for far too long. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, do all those things that help this channel grow. I will be live on here later, actually, because I'm banned on the other platform. But yeah, I will be live later, guys. I'm going back to grid. I'll get you guys another video later.